YouTube, it is Friday Night Live. It is Friday and we are live. What is going on, everyone? Man, what a day. Again, it feels like every Friday I'm running around like a madman trying to get here on time, even with pushing back the start time of the live show. But thank you to all the folks that have been hanging out waiting. Big shout out, X11, David, Travis, Sky Ryder, Comic Noob, Battle Panda. All right, we got some folks hanging out. Dan is here. All right, guys, we got a very, very interesting topic of discussion today. We're gonna take a few minutes to let some folks get in here. I almost didn't make it, folks. I'm still not at home, still in the hotel. I've been going back and forth picking up my kids from school. There was crazy traffic and an accident going both ways. So I was so late, but luckily I was only a few minutes late to get with you guys. Really interesting because I had this topic of discussion going for today, and then something came up yesterday that is just going to add to this topic of discussion. Now, I'm not as prepared as I would like to, but this can probably be a discussion that we circle back around maybe in a couple weeks, and we could dive into deeper. But I am going to get a screen ready to share for while I'm doing that. We got issues going on. Dave Collects, Ishmael, Deadbeat Gamer, Reapers. All right, we got some folks. Okay, let me get this ready. Guys, if you are subscribed to the channel and you're hanging out for the first time, please take the time to do so. Still got my 8K sub contest coming up real soon. As soon as I get back into my home, goes junk. Let's see. And of course, check out all the links below, folks. We got Comic Book Canon returning to our standard format tonight. So when we're done here, I hope to see each and every one of you over there. We got the Comic Book Canon YouTube link below as well. If you haven't subscribed to us yet there, please do so. We are about to start pushing for our 1,000 subscriber contest. I'm actually going to show you guys a little book that I got today too for that contest. Let's see, what window am I going to share here? This one. Okay. Share. All right. That's the one we want. This is the one we want. Where are we? Here we go. All right. Let's pull this out for right now, though. Okay. So, anyways, I was talking about Comic Book Canon and our 1,000 subscriber contest. I'm going to grab a book real quick, folks. All right, this is just the beginning, a beautiful EGS 9.8 slab of Spawn 311 McFarlane variant Chadwick Boseman tribute. Beautiful custom label. We're going to be giving this away in our 1,000 subscriber contest for Comic Book Canon. Like I said, we'll have more details soon. I think as soon as we hit 900 subscribers, we're probably going to do a full-on announcement and letting you guys know what you need to do. But for now, just to give you guys a little bit of a taste. Yeah, buddy. So again, if you aren't subscribed to Comic Book Canon, that link is below, guys. We have live shows every Friday. Awesome special guests almost every show, of course. Life gets in the way, and we've had a lot of complications these last few weeks to where we didn't have any guests, but we will be back on track starting in September to having our special guest co-host. So good things to come. Good things to come for sure. Let's see. We got Chef R.D. Harris. What is going on? Yes, my comic library is okay. That is a room that's, was built in the garage area. So outside, separate of the living space. So even when, to give you guys a little bit of context, when we had found originally back in March, the damages, the first mold remediation company that came out cross-contaminated the home. So that's why this process has just been so, well, that's not all of it. I mean, there's so many more details. I don't need to bore you guys with all those details, but Jordan, what's going on, Jordan? Nick, Welcome, welcome. All right, folks, what else? So I talked about my AK contest. This is something that I wanted to do a couple weeks ago that I've been pushed back just because of life situations. But again, it's going to be really easy to enter. You just have to be sub to me for the most part. I will let you guys know as soon as I get back home what you're going to need in order to enter to win. I already have some of my prizes picked out for that. I'm hoping to be back home by not this coming Friday, but the Friday following. So no more than 2 more weeks. Pray that that's it, and it's not pushed back longer. Once I get back home on my Friday night live stream, I will be doing full-on announcement for that contest. All right, let's see what else before we get into the topic of discussion. Of course, I have to thank my members of the channel, my Patreon members, and my YouTube channel members. I appreciate you all for the continued support. I even appreciate you all going through this last month with me, with all the trials and tribulations, all the delays and whatnot. Oh, look at that. EW, thank you so much for joining. Just so you guys know, anybody that is a channel member will get an extra entry into my 8K subscriber contest. You'll get extra entries into all of my standard YouTube contests. For sure. And I also will do random giveaways. I'll show you this right now. I finally was able to snatch this up from my home once the mold containments came down. This is the winnings of last month's YouTube member contest. Nothing too big, but we got a few books in here going out to Blackout Comics. A big shout out to Blackout Comics for winning this one. Thank you so much, EW. I appreciate it. Mojo, what's going on, Mojo? Yeah, and there hasn't been any early access videos over the last couple of weeks just because of everything, but you guys will get early access to a few videos every month, most likely, investment speculation type videos and things of that nature. And again, big shout out to all my Patreon members, which is a little bit more a month, and I appreciate the support that you guys bring me, especially with this month being delayed. I did finally do my July Q&A. That went up earlier this week, and I also posted to get questions in for August Q&A. I'll most likely push that back probably after the first week of September just to make sure you guys get time to submit. Here's the thing as well. For all of my members, I do a special monthly cover submission. I received submissions for the month of August, and I haven't shown any of them off yet. Okay, but that's just because of everything going on. If you guys still want to submit for August, I'm going to run that probably through the first week of September going into next week, and hopefully either next week or the week after that, I will show off all of those submissions on our live show. And then probably after the first week of September, we'll go into a new theme. So again, everything is just a little bit behind. Bear with me, folks. It's been crazy. All right. Nerds being geeks, what's going on? Brick Hunter, Brian Wells. What is going on, folks? Okay, so I think that's pretty much it. Again, big, huge thank you. Oh, and I still have, last thing, folks, my July patron member contest. It's still going on. Daredevil, 181, Death of Elektra, and a few other books is going to be going out to a winner really soon. I promise. All right. And like I promised, I'm going to push my next Patreon contest early to September, where we'll be giving away the CGC Tales to Astonish 91 8.0 white page slab, second appearance and first cover of Abomination, to celebrate the release of the Shang-Chi movie, right? Perfect timing. So because of all the delays, I am pushing that contest forward. All you got to do is be a Patreon member, the link's below, before I run that contest. All right. Okay, folks, are we ready to get into a topic of discussion? Do you trust grading companies? Now, I based this topic of discussion on a comment that I received on a recent video. I recently did my unboxing of my EGS Labs, showing you guys off these awesome books that I received. And I received a comment, and I'm going to bring that up on screen. I received this comment right here from Bill Gobber. Big shout out to Bill. Bill, if you're watching, appreciate the support on the channel, and thank you so much for supplying this comment, because it made for a good talking point. So let's read this. Bill says, does anyone in the industry value EGS? If not, it's not going to help the value of the book unless people trust the grading company. Would be nice to have another option, but I will pass until they gain traction. Okay, so Bill fleshes some stuff out here. And I'm reading this and I'm like, oh, Bill, I love it. This is when I love for my viewers to get involved and give me talking points, right? So I said, trust. I said, okay, value, trust. Let's talk about this. What does that mean? So Bill is saying, well, you know, they're an up-and-coming grading company. Who is there a value in them? Are they selling on the secondary market? What's going on? I don't know too much about them yet, so I'm gonna chill. And nothing wrong with that, Bill. Nothing wrong with Bill chilling. I get it. But when he brought up there's no value unless people trust the grading company, and so I started thinking, do people really trust grading companies? Do we actually trust any grading company? Do we actually trust CGC? Or are we just programmed to send our books out to CGC because of that? Well, they command a higher resale amount on the secondary market, but do we trust them? Vinny, what's going on, Vinny? And funny thing, Comic Tom posted on Instagram just yesterday, I believe, about a video that Carl Jobs did discussing what he is claiming to be market manipulation between grading companies and auction houses like Heritage Auction. So we'll circle back to that in a minute, but I'm gonna read you guys my reply to Bill here. I say this. I say, Bill, this comment has sparked a talking point for my Friday Night Live show tomorrow. Thank you, Bill. And I said this. But to answer here, every single person that has ever sent a book into EGS values EGS in some form or fashion. If they're spending money to send a book to EGS, and sure, it's not in the millions like CGC. EGS has been around for a couple of years, and they continue to gain a little bit of momentum as time passes, a little bit more, doing things. Everyone that's ever sent a book into EGS values EGS. When you talk about trust, that's a whole other factor. I know dozens of people that don't necessarily trust CGC, but they blindly send their books to them anyway, simply because of what they command on the secondary market. So this type of mentality and these types of actions will continue to put CGC's value above the monetary value, above the competition, but it isn't because of trust, and that breeds a very big problem. People value, bottom tier, what's going on? People value CGC merely because of the monetary value that they can get in return, but it's not necessarily built on trust. That's the problem here. So let's talk about, and I'm not going to bring up Carl's video or anything like that. As of late, I don't trust CGC, but I do own CGC slabs. So, Brick Hunter, what an inherited scandal. Pretty gross. Well, that's what Carl was talking about. And folks, like I said, I'm not going to bring the video up. I want you guys to go to Carl Jobs' YouTube. It's a 50-minute long video, but it doesn't seem like 50 minutes. He did a very thorough job. To me, it was like an episode of like Unsolved Mysteries. Like the way he, broke it down, the way that he brought the evidence and his argument, his points of argument. He did and I'm not saying I agree with everything blanket, is like 100%, but he did a very good job and made it very convincing. All right. So, and to summarize, Carl was talking about basically What A Games, which is now like the top tier grading company of video games, right? And Heritage Auction House. and how the executives and the CEOs and COOs and the creators and the funders that created these two companies have basically hold executive positions for the other company, and it's like insider trading. It's like insider trading. They're basically manipulating the market by boosting prices and all this stuff. Like I said, I don't want to get too much into detail, but the main culprit behind all this is Jim Halperin, who's the Heritage Auction CEO, but who is also an executive of What a Games, and who was also convicted back in the 80s of starting a different video game grading company and had to pay millions of dollars back because of fraud, because he was manipulating the value of these graded video games. So basically he says it's this kind of a cohort of insider trading where, you know, one person will send a game to get graded to their own company, and their own company grades it a 9.8, and then the media, you know, they buy, and then that same person that submitted it buys it for an outrageous price that's way above a typical fair market value, and then the media sees it and gets a hold of it and goes and interviews these people, and they talk it up and they say, yeah, I can't, you know, because the same person that had it sent to the grading company owns stake in the grading company, and they're talking to this person as if they're just an owner of the video game, and they're saying, yeah, I see the video game market going nuts in the future and all this stuff, and it brings attention, right? And so they buy a video game for $500,000, then they'll, you know, put it back on the market at $1 million, and then have their friend buy it, shill bidding, right? And all this jazz, right? And we hear this type of stuff talked about in comic books a lot. And I made a video on it. I think everybody wants to point the finger that everything's shill bidding and a conspiracy, which is not the case. But the big question is, does it happen? Can it happen? Well, sure. So here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Let me pull back my screen, see if I can see some comments. Before I go into the here's the thing, let's see. Sean says, every major auction house has had issues with fraud, illegal sales, and such. You just don't really hear about it. And that seems to be absolute fact, Sean, for sure. X11, we will never work with anyone but EGS, just a personal preference and integrity thing. I'm going to come back to integrity about that, X11, because that's a good point that I'm going to summarize in the end here. Kingsley, yeah, it was a good wake-up call to me to not trust CGC. Was a spectacular Spider-Man 64 Cloak and Dagger, so not in here. Okay, all right. Peter, what's going on, Peter? Okay, so here's the thing, folks. Let's pull me up here for a minute. Let me break this down into segments here. I really want you guys to go watch Carl's video, okay? Carl Jobst, Jobst, I believe, right? I want you to watch that video, and then you'll be able to, then maybe we'll do in 2 weeks, we'll come back and talk about this topic even more. But I want to talk about this. Video games. The one thing about video games is there's no census. There's no population count like there is comic books, right? That breeds even bigger problem, okay? And you got to understand that I do believe, without diving too much into it, I do believe, you know, you got to understand that with video games, with retro video games and video games, it's not just a comic book. It's basically the game in a box in a shrink wrap. So there's not as many out there as there is comic books. Now, I'm not saying that just because it's a retro video game means it's rare. And Carl talks about that in his video. There are video games that are retro that aren't necessarily rare, and there's a ton of them out there. But for the most part, I think it's easier to manipulate the market because they aren't as in top supply, especially for those high grades where you get them in a mint box and a mint shrink wrap, and you can get those 9.8 grades on the video games. Where, you know, most people that buy video games through the years, through the 80s and 90s, 2000s, they're buying the game, they're taking it out of the box, and they're not even caring about the box, right? They're playing the video game. So there's less out there, and it makes it easier to possibly manipulate. Here's the thing that I find funny though. Now, how much does this affect us as collectors? And we're speaking specifically of video games right now. Basically, it's this. It's wealthy millionaires that are basically shitting out money between each other to say, oh, look, I made more money off of the next rich person. I'm going to sell a video game for $500,000 and then talk about it to try to boost it up. And then I'm going to try to sell it again for $1 million. But then some other rich guy's going to come along and buy it for $1 million. And then he's going to boost it up and sell it for $1.5 million. And it's like, because how many people in the chat right now are buying video games for hundreds of thousands of dollars? How many of us? If there's somebody in the chat that's buying video games for hundreds of thousands of dollars, can you take me out to Red Lobster, please? Comic Book Cannon, my other half, hanging out. I want to see all of you guys there at 6 o'clock, 9 p.m. Pacific. Excuse me, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Comic Journey. What's going on, man? Pedro. So, it's like, why do I even care that a bunch of millionaires are creating this bubble of a market of high-grade retro video games, right? Right. Well, the reason is because it has a trickle-down effect. It has a trickle-down effect. And although the level of those effects may not really hurt the average collector on an average day, but it's still bad and in a negative dirt stain on the hobby and on the industry. All right. So what does it boil down to when it comes to any collectible? When you have companies like grading companies and auction houses that have employees that are working for each company that are basically giving each other inside trading and then giving each other publicity to create this false sense of demand for these items. It boils down to transparency and ethics. And what does that boil down to? Trust. Agent D. Kent, what's going on? Trust, folks. Now, so what is this? Another thing that this comes back to that Carl and some other folks he had in the video talked about, which is what I talk to all the time, is the issue with subjectivity in the grading scale. When a 9.6 comic book or video game can be sent back 10 times to CGC or CBCS, and one of those times it comes back as a 9.8, that's a problem, because it could mean thousands and thousands of dollars. Thousands and thousands of dollars. Well, the last time I looked for an uncanny, a Hope 181, I believe a 9.6 was sitting at like 20,000 and a 9.8 was sitting at like 50,000. That's about a $30,000 differential just depending on the mood of the grader that day. Do you trust CGC, or do you send them to CGC because you see one thing? Dollar signs. I don't believe that grading companies are a detriment to this hobby of comic books, or any hobby for that matter. I think they are a great thing. I think they add a lot of value. I think they bring in a different variable to this hobby. But it becomes, and I have said this for years, and it seems that finally people are talking about it, and it's becoming more popular opinion. And I'm not going down there. You always get these conspiracy theorists or people that lean so much this way to one side of an argument or so much this way. And it's just so lopsided of an argument and of a stance. You know me, I'm always in the middle of things because I'm able to see from both sides of the playing field. But I've been saying this for years now. Until CGC and CBCS and the grading companies and the grading industry as a whole have a transparent business model, have a transparent grading system in place, I don't think it will ever be about trust. Ever. It's about, I don't care, because all I know is that if I spend a little bit of money to send my books to CGC, I'm going to make money on the secondary market. I don't care if it's subjective. I don't care how subjective it is. It's going to make me money, so I'm not going to question it. That's what it's boiled down to. CGC is the problem with the grading companies. When they finally get exposed for inconsistent grading, the market will be better. Common Journey, I can't just sit in here and say CGC is the problem. What does CBCS have that gives us more trust? Does CBCS have a transparent grading system? No, they don't either. They don't either. And I haven't used CBCS like that personally to say, well, I can tell from the books that I submit that their grading seems to be more consistent. That may be the case. But not one grading company has a transparent grading system except for one. You know what that one is? EGS. And look here, I'm not sponsored by EGS. I'm not here to, mad respect for Tony, president of EGS, but I'll tell it like it is. I did an honest review last fall, and I talked about what things that I necessarily didn't like or what I thought they could improve on, and I still am rooting for Tony and EGS to get their custom cases going. So don't get it twisted. That's my favorite saying. If you guys don't know about it, don't get it twisted. I am not here boosting EGS because they have a long way to go to compete with the big two. At least I never talk about PGX, so I won't even bring them up, folks. I won't even bring them up. EGS is the only grading company that's penetrated the market, even though they're still small, that has a transparent grading system. If you want to know more about that, reach out on their website, contact EGS, contact Tony. He'll be glad to have a conversation with you. That is a huge issue, in my opinion. So going back to what was his name? Going back to Bill's comment. Does anyone in the industry value EGS? If it's not going to help the value of the book unless people trust the grading company. So while I want to agree with Bill and I wish we use grading companies because of trust, we use grading companies because of a preconceived value that we hold on CGC. Simply because they were here first. Well, there's other variables and factors. I mean, they've improved their product, so to say. I mean, they have better cases, better labels. So, you can make arguments there for some of those factors, but there is a preconceived value for CGC. It's not because of trust. Not one bit. Comics Journey, yeah, maybe they can add a QR and the certificate. I actually like the certificate. I like that you get that. Maybe they can still add a QR, like on the back side here, and keep the certificate. I think the certificate just adds a cool touch, and you always get grading notes even on 9.8s. right? So, I just wish I can talk in depth to everything Carl talked about. And especially the way that the auction houses really drive this up. But here's the thing, I do want to bring this up, folks, when it comes to comic books and when it comes to market manipulation, okay? Because too many people in the comic book hobby talk about market manipulation as a conspiracy theory, and they just throw it around out there so loosely, and it bothers me, and it irks me, and it makes me laugh. Not everything is a conspiracy, and it's not that easy to manipulate the market as a whole. And when you have uneducated buyers buying things, it's not necessarily market manipulation. So let me give you an example. Remember, I was saying how I think it's easier to say with like a Super Mario Bros. NES game that's a 9.8 A++ grade. It's easy for these big, rich millionaires that are executives for both of these companies, the auction house and the grading company. So the guy that works at the grading company and the auction house buys the game, puts it up on sale at Heritage Auction, buys it for more than what he paid for it, and then auctioning a Heritage Auction like blasts it as like this amazing auction that's sold for whatever, and all the news outlets get a hold of it. The thing with comic books is this. Usually, if you are basing your purchasing decisions on one sale, you are being completely irresponsible. If a video game sold for $500,000 and then not even a year later it sells for $2 million, simply because that $500,000 sale made people think, oh my God, this is a scarce, rare investment. I better get my hands on it. I'm willing to pay $2 million for it. If a Ultimate Fallout 4 that say right now is selling for $2,500, right? If tomorrow an Ultimate Fallout 4 9.8 CGC sold for $8,000, would you have so much FOMO that immediately after seeing that, you go on to eBay or to Heritage Auction or whatever and buy one for $7,000, $8,000, or even $9,000 or $10,000? Would you? Because if you do, I don't want to call you names, but that's not very smart. It is a reckless and ignorant decision. Because you have to understand outliers. There are enough 9.8s out there to where if you see one sell for twice or three times that of the recent current fair market value, and when you say recent current, I'm sure there's enough being sold. I'm sure there's a handful that have been sold over the last 2 to 3 to 4 weeks. If one sells for double the price or even a couple $1,000s more, that's a red flag. Don't go and pay that much for a book just because one happened to sell that much. If you see a raw book, and I do this when I look up, because I make videos, top hottest this to invest in, or and I'll see, if I see a book, maybe it's a modern book, and the average value of that modern book is $12. But then I see a high sale of $300. But then the ones below that, the high sales below that are like 75, 60, and 55. And then your average is like 12. That 300 might be an outlier to where a few things could be going on. Maybe it didn't get differentiated that it was an error issue, or it had a signature and it was signed, or newsstand versus direct if it's a 90s book or something like that. Or maybe it's just an error. Maybe it's just an error in the database. You never know. Or maybe it's somebody shill bidding and acting like they're wanting to push that value up. I don't know. But if I see something like that, I'm not going to go say, oh, this book is worth $300. For one, I'm going to go do more research on my own. right? With comic books or with anything, but especially with comic books, never make a decision based on one sale. Never. Never. Now, Luke says, everyone thought 2K on Marvel's Previews 95, 9.8 was nuts, but look at it now. Here's the thing, Luke. If there is an outlier and it continues to sell like that, then at least you have precedent and multiple sales data to be able to make a sound decision if you think it's worth that much. But if you see one outlier and you simply blindly go buy one at that price or a little higher than that, it doesn't matter if that outlier was a shill bid or somebody buying their own book or whatever, or an error. It's not market manipulation now, because you know what you're contributing to? You are contributing to an honest fair market value, because you're the one that didn't do your homework to do your research. And that's why I said about FOMO too. When a book does this overnight, say the last sale on a book was $20, but the next day somebody wanted to pay $150 for it. Maybe because there was a TV announcement or a movie announcement. All right? Although I think it's might be not smart to just go pay that much more than the last sale, because you could probably find one for way cheaper, but you're so fear of not catching one that you're gonna buy that overpriced one on eBay with that overpriced buy it now, just because you want to secure it. And now what are you doing? You are changing the current fair market value of that book. And people see that and perceive it, and they follow trend. Oh, I need to get my hand on that now. I need to get my hands on that now. That's not market manipulation. That's just uneducated buying. And uneducated buying often does impact the market. Not manipulate it, but it impacts it. And it changes it. That's why we need to be educated buyers and educated collectors. FOMO isn't always a bad thing. You know, you can have healthy FOMO as long as you are educated in the decisions that you are making. So, circling this right back around. Everyone loves a good story. Securing books has become more prevalent. True, and that's true. And that's true, and that's just the natural cause and effect right there. But let's circle back around to the grading industry. Same thing goes here. When it comes to whether it's sending your books out to get graded or buying graded books, whether you're hunting 9.8s or maybe you don't mind lower grades or mid grades, always be educated to what you're doing. All right? The more we are educated and we make sound decisions, the more we can start holding these companies accountable. When we stop demanding that book in that CGC slide that says a 9.8, when we stop saying that I'm willing to pay $30,000 more for a Hulk 181 9.8 CGC than a CGC 9.6, when we stop saying there's way too much subjectivity going on with the grading, I'm just not doing it. Because you know what I can do? I'm gonna pay $30,000 less for a 9.6. I'm gonna crack it, pay $50 to get it pressed and clean, and maybe I send it 5 times and spend a few $100s to keep sending it to CGC until it gets a 9.8. We don't trust grading companies. We value the monetary return that are already preconceived in what the grading companies give us. We don't send books to CGC because we trust them. We send books to CGC blindly hoping that they are going to give us a bigger return on investment because for so long, somebody else said so. Even I prefer, well, I did a review. I'm really liking the new CBCS case and label. So it's hard for me to decide, but let's just say, for argument's sake, that I still think CGC has the best cases and best labels. Let's just say, for argument's sake. It doesn't mean that I trust them. And that's why so many people, I have lost subscribers and I've been personally attacked. People are fickle. Because I will call CGC out in one video because of their lack of transparency. And then I'll do my next video, I'm telling you about what books I'm sending off to CGC. Am I a hypocrite? No. I just speak the truth, the fact. And I don't trust CGC. I don't trust CGC. But I do still value their product. But here's the thing. I've sent off books to CGC. I've sent off books to EGS. And I haven't sent off books to CBCS yet, but I plan to. Next, I actually canceled my auto renewal membership with CGC this year. I canceled it. This is my last year. Will I never send books to CGC again? No, I'm sure I will some way down the road. But I like what CBCS is doing. Do I care about the monetary value? I do. I'd be lying if I didn't. But I'm not going to so blindly follow them for that monetary value, for that preconceived, presumed higher value. And if you guys have been monitoring the market, CBCS's secondary market value, the gap has been closing on a lot of books. Sean says, I send my books to CBCS because I trust them with my books. I would say 80% of my books I submit are for my PC and want them in a slab to grade and protect it. Sean, let me ask you, do you trust that they'll handle your book good and safely, or do you actually trust the grade, or maybe both? I would love to hear your answer on those. I trust CGC's grading way more than eBay sellers. Brick Hunter, I agree. Yeah, I was just talking, I think last week, about how, or maybe in a video, it's so funny. I'm tired of seeing books with the covers like half ripped off. Very fine from a seller on eBay, right? And I trust CGC's grading way more than I trust PGX's. I will never send a book to PGX. I don't trust CGC all that much, but I trust them more to PGX because I will never send a book to PGX. Will that change? Maybe. And I hope it does, because I don't want any company that's out there trying to do their thing and make money. I don't want any of them to fail. But right now, as of right now, I am not sending anything to PGX. I don't trust them with the safety of my books. I don't trust the grade, because I'll send them a 2.0 and it'll come back a 5.0. I'll send them a freaking purple label with the centerfold missing in a book, and it'll come back an 8.0 with the blue label. I'm good. Jesse thinks that CGC should take centering into account. I'm not going to agree or disagree with that, Jesse. I think it's a very valid argument in a good topic of discussion. When you guys send back to CGC to regrade, do you crack yourself or let them crack and regrade? From my knowledge, I see that most people crack it themselves, unless it's like a reholster. Okay, Sean's answering my question. He says, I trust both. I never heard of issues with major damages that wasn't there before. Issues with hair, improper slabbing, or slab damage. They are rather consistent with grading and seam. So Sean, I think now CGC still gets more business than CBCS. I've heard, I could count on one hand the horror stories that I've heard about CBCS. I could count on one hand. And I don't even really remember them off the top of my head. I don't think any of them have ripped the cover off. I think there was one that was like damaged. I heard a couple of bad shipping stories. I heard some people not being happy with their customer service at times, but not much. So yeah, I haven't heard much from CBCS. Where I have a folder on my computer of all of the horror stories from CGC. And once I'm going to make a video on it one day. I am, because it's a lot. It's a lot. Hey, oh, also, folks, remember that video I did about that 9.0 Wiz, Golden Age Wiz comic that CGC ripped the cover off of? I'm going to keep anonymity. I'm not going to say his name, but I was contacted by the owner of that book. And I forgot about this. With everything going on in my life, I forgot about it. And he told me his story and how they dealt with it. And boy, oh boy, is it a horror. You think that them just ripping the cover off is a horror story? I will be doing a video telling the whole story of what happened with that book and how they handled the customer. It is an absolute shame. Yeah, centering is a manufacturer error, which CGC does not ding for. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I like the differentiation between manufacturing errors, but I mean, there's an argument there for folks that think that they matter. Though those things matter in terms of the grade of the book. All right, folks. So we're going to start wrapping it up here. I do got to get ready for comic book canon. Let's see if I read a couple more comments here. Brookhunter says, the thing about CGC is that they grade tons of books. One can send in hundreds of books without issues. But that one time CGC messes up a viral video on YouTube. That's very true, Brookhunter. It is. It is true. I mean, you're never going to hear... You're going to hear the horror stories much more loudly than the success stories. That's how we are as human beings in life. But here's the thing. I don't care what type of volume that you do. You need to have quality control. There should be never a reason that a comic book is upside down in its slab. There should be never a case that a comic book is upside down in its slab. Never. Never. But outside of the quality control issues, I'm talking about trust in terms of the grading process. We have to trust the companies. We have to demand trust in the companies. We have to demand trust. And we demand trust by being vocal in our communities, but also by speaking with our purchasing power. We have to stop sending our books to CGC or buying CGC 9.8s just because of that number on the piece of plastic, or just because we think inherently that they're going to give us more return on investment. The only reason that they're giving us a higher return on investment is because we disillusion ourselves to think that they are worth more. Because we are in fear of going to somebody else that we trust more. Because, well, I don't know. Am I going to be able to get a high return on investment if I sell an EGS book on the market? Well, start sending your books to a grading company that you do trust. Start buying graded books on eBay not because you just think that they're going to get you a higher value monetarily, but because you trust the grade, because you like the slab, because you like the label, because you think it's a good product. And I'm not saying that everyone out there that's into CGC is not doing just that. I value those non-monetary variables with CGC. I said that. I mean, they still arguably have the best cases. Arguably. That's just my opinion. It's aesthetics. Aesthetics could be a different opinion for someone else, right? Take in every factor that's important to you. For me, it's a little bit of everything. It's the aesthetics. It's the way it looks. It's trusting the grading process. And it is secondary market value. And when I do all those things, it puts me in a position where some books I'm sending to EGS, some books I'm sending to CGC, and some books I'm going to be sending off to CBCS. That's where I'm at right now. But I will continue to be an advocate for a transparent grading system. And I will also be an advocate. I don't believe in bureaucracy all the time. I think it waters down things and it convolutes things. But I do believe, and I don't believe in regulating everything, but I do believe when you look at Carl's video and what he talked about with the gaming and the grading and the WUTA in heritage, there needs to be regulation. There needs to be some type of regulation between the grading companies and the auction houses. There needs to be from third-party entities that work as a commission. There needs to be a trading commission committee that holds grading companies accountable for transparency and trust, period. Until that happens, there's going to be problems. And here's the thing. What Carl talked about is a bubble bursting in the video game market, and I do believe that can happen. I don't see a bubble bursting in the I've talked about this. Overall, there isn't this huge bubble in comic books. Overall, it's a natural, healthy market. But I will say this, the 9.8 demand right now, I've said this before, as soon as people realize, especially with CGC, that 9.8 can be a 9.6 tomorrow, and it could mean a difference of $30,000, the 9.8 market is going to crash. TS, it's like the sand you spread under the cement slab. Is that the grade? The foundation? All right, folks. Smelly Pants. All right, I'm loving the screen name. What's the grading company? Jeff's hounding me because I need to get over and prepare for comic book canon. So, folks, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I wish I was more prepared, but I hope that I brought a sound conversation, argument to the table today. I appreciate all your guys' feedback that you brought to the table as well. To Bill Gobber, who left that comment, thank you so much, Bill, for diving into this so we can have a talking point. Again, thank you to all my channel members, my YouTube channel members. If you guys are interested, it's only $1.99 a month. By clicking that join button below, you do get early access to some videos. I do random contest giveaways, and you get extra entries into all my standard YouTube contests, aka contests coming real soon as I get back in my home, folks. And again, to all my patron supporters, if you guys are interested in supporting there, it's only $3.99 a month. That link is below as well. I will be doing my drawing real soon for that Daredevil 181 and the other handful of books. And I will be reminding you all in September about the Tales to Astonish 91 CGC 8.0 white pages, second appearance of Abomination, first cover appearance. If you are signed up as a patron member, before that goes live, which will most likely be the middle of September, you will be entered into that contest. All right. So just keep that in mind. I'll bring more of an announcement to the table next Friday. So thank you all so much for watching. EW, thank you so much for joining as a YouTube member today. Really, really appreciate you and for the support. And again, through all the trying times that I've been through for the last 3 weeks or so, I want to give a big shout out again to X11 for all the personal support and community support. Truly, truly appreciate you. Folks, we're 16 minutes away for Combo Book Cannon. I really hope to see all of you guys there. Peace.